Good afternoon. My name is Ginger, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the 7 Practices of Top Performing Organizations, specifically around SaaS HRMS webinar. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the pound key. Thank you. Ms. Mary Sheffield, you may begin your conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me, and welcome, and thank you for taking an hour out of your afternoon to join us today. By brief introduction, my name is Mary Sheffield, and I am a general manager responsible for the Workday practice at Cedar Crestone. As a company, we're very excited about SaaS and cloud solutions, and in particular, Workday bringing forward an alternative for our customers. The practice that I am responsible for is introducing or help market awareness around the Workday solution, and we're very excited about the opportunity to present again to our customers. Lexy is going to do the presentation today, and one of the things that you're going to see as a result of her survey is, Workday should experience, or we see phenomenal growth for Workday over the coming years. As an introduction to Lexy, Lexy is the Vice President of Research and Analytics at Cedar Crestone. She's responsible for the annual HR System Survey, and this is its 15th year. When she's not working on the survey, we keep her pretty busy. She provides strategy, business case, and analytic services, along with deep dive benchmarking for organizations across all industries. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lexy.
Oh, thanks, Mary. And yes, I do keep busy, no question about that. And let me offer a thanks, too, for all of you on the call today to listen to the 7 practices of top performing organizations that's based on our latest Cedar Crestone HR System Survey. We started this survey 15 years ago, as Mary said, back in 1997. I think we missed 1 year in there. But we started it to help our customers at the time understand emerging HR technologies. And we've continued to evolve the survey over the years. And actually, I want to really give a big shout out to my colleagues who work so hard on this with me, Kim Lowry, Michelle Blevins, and we've got an even bigger team of great, great colleagues. The objective we've always had for this survey is to help practitioners to know which technologies to deploy next and to help them with their business case. But this time we're doing something a little different. We're also offering some great recommendations that are based on the practices of top performing organizations. So what I'm going to talk about today at a real high level is these 4 big trends. Software as a service, and particularly here I'm going to be talking about what's happening with the core system of record, the HRMS. I'll talk a bit about social, mobile, and analytics and how these kinds of solutions are also delivering business outcomes. But I've got a whole lot more. If any of you have ever participated in the survey, you know it's a big survey. So I can talk about vendor choices. I can talk about employee usage of these choices, user experience. I can talk about the costs of the HRMS, although we track much more than just the HRMS costs. I'll also briefly cover the value of the various categories of applications that we cover, service delivery, talent management, and so forth. And then throughout, I'm going to highlight the 7 practices of highly effective organizations that's based on a deep analysis of the top performing survey respondents. And to that, let's see, first let me tell you about the demographics of the survey respondents. We actually had the largest number of respondents we've ever had, and quite a bit more than last year. It's a very representative set of respondents. You can see by our breakouts here by size that while the average number of employees for a respondent organization is close to 18,000, we have also broken it into employers that employ less than 2,500 employees, and we're actually seeing a real increase among respondents of that size. That has a little impact on our overall averages in that they're not quite as far along as the larger size organizations in their adoption. So I'll be sure to point out where we've got some differences by size of respondent. And you can see our industry breakouts, and we're actually going to do 2 additional breakouts this year, one for higher ed and public sector and another one for healthcare. So make sure to come back to our website if you're in either of those 2 industries. Now, the person that actually responds is someone who's typically at the intersection of HR and IT. And yes, most of them are from HR, but we have a good percentage from IT, so I'm going to talk about their different perspectives. Most of the respondents are a director or manager level, and I hope you feel that they represent you and your organizations. So I want to briefly explain our methodology for identifying top performer organizations. And just like Stephen Covey studied highly successful people, what we did is we looked for highly successful organizations to understand what they're doing and what their key practices are related to HR technologies. And so to select these organizations that responded to our survey, we chose some independently validated key financial metrics just from the publicly traded organizations among our respondents. So for the productivity metric, we looked at the average revenue generated by each employee. For profitability, we looked at profit per employee. For investment in effectiveness, we looked at operating income growth rate as a measure of how well organizations are investing in their employees. And then for fundraising viability, we looked at return on shareholder equity because I think this ratio gives an indication of how viable it is for the company to raise further shareholder funds for continued expansion. And then from these, we developed a composite score across all those metrics. We removed outliers to kind of get rid of any industry variations. And from that, we were able then to identify the top 50 organizations that we identified as top performers. And you can see from these 4 little charts that the top 50 organizations significantly outperformed others. And then we looked at their survey responses to identify common characteristics for them, which are essentially the key practices of top performer organizations. So let me share some of our findings as context for the rest of what I'm going to present. One of the contextual questions we ask is, where is your organization spending at least 25% of its time? And business process improvements and innovations has always been at the top of the list. I think what is happening is that organizations are doing some foundational work with their processes before they embark on any new technology work. And it's something that very much needs to be done before changing the deployment approach to SaaS. And then half of our respondents are spending time on talent management processes and associated automation. I think that's really the technology focus for any HR technology work that's going on these days. And you can see our other major initiatives. Now, Mary mentioned that I do benchmark work, and so one of the things I did is I used our benchmark tools to go out and look at Workday respondents, and I want to show that they're a little bit different than the overall average. They too are spending time on business processes. They're also much more focused on service delivery than the overall averages. I think as they roll out Workday as an improvement over what they had, they're needing to spend time with employee and manager self-service and some of the other activities that go along with service delivery improvements. And then down at the bottom, they're much more focused on change management than the overall survey respondents. And I'll talk about this later. I think it's a real key success criteria for any deployment. Now, presumably Workday respondents have already focused on their HR system strategy, because I'm seeing here that just a few of them are focusing on an HR system strategy. If they haven't done that, they really need to, because that too is a key foundational activity before changing your HRMS. I want to introduce the new Cedar Crestone HCM blueprint as another of our contextual pieces. This is a blueprint that this year shows everything that we cover in our survey. So starting first with user experience and the various devices that give access to the applications. And then the applications encompass our primary categories of technologies that we track. So administrative, we look at the core system of record, benefits, payroll. With service delivery, it's not just employee and manager self-service, but also the adoption of a portal, also the adoption of an HR help desk application, oftentimes deployed within shared service center. And then it's workforce lifecycle management, and specifically right now we see that focused on the onboarding process. With workforce management, it's all those applications that help an organization get the right people in the right place at the right time at the right cost. And with talent management, it's those applications that enable an organization to attract, develop, and retain a workforce. And I added one more focus area in the application area this year, work management. It's one of our emerging technologies. I'm defining that as tools for getting work done, and I'm not actually going to present anything on that today, but so you can see our white paper for more information on that. But it is an application area that I think will have more importance for HR going forward. With analytics and business intelligence, I've added it into two places. One is in the applications area, because I think almost all of the newest permutations of these applications actually have strong embedded analytics. It's an area that we see Workday being very strong with. And then also in the common services areas, we've called out the integration tools, the ETL tools that enable an organization to extract data from multiple sources to be able to juxtapose that with workforce data in order to do good reporting and analytics around the workforce. Another area that I see as kind of at the intersection of both common services and applications is social collaboration tools. I'm seeing that also permeating newer application offerings. And then finally, at the bottom, I've added the deployment approaches that we cover. So how the applications are actually being deployed, whether they're licensed and run on-premise or hosted, or run via software as a service, or whether they're outsourced in terms of both the process and the technology. So this is our new integrated, unified human capital management blueprint, focusing first on user experience, but also encompassing all that we cover in the survey. Excuse me. So whether an application area is in use or not is important. I think what's become more top of mind for many of us is what's the deployment approach used and what's the direction. So how is each application being deployed? Does the organization license it, run it on-premise, have it hosted? Do they acquire a SaaS model? They get their software on a subscription basis? Or do they have a hybrid model that may use all of these approaches but always includes a SaaS solution? And we see that mostly among the larger organizations and oftentimes among the really large global organizations that may have a SaaS solution for some of their applications, but also will have licensed software that they run on-premise, or maybe they'll have some that are also outsourced. It's a new option that we added this year, and it kind of threw some of our averages off a bit. I'll talk about that in a moment. So what you're seeing here, the blue bar, is the average deployment across all the 30-plus applications that we track, and then the green bar shows the one-year outlook. And so licensed, on-premise, and hosted is absolutely not dead. It is the predominant approach for all applications today, but it obviously is declining, and going forward is essentially going to be neck and neck with a combination of SaaS and hybrid. And when we look just at the HRMS, here we're just looking at the core system of record and how that's being deployed in organizations. Last year, respondents said that the SaaS HRMS adoption was going to be 24%. We didn't quite get there just with the SaaS subscription-based option alone, but adding in those that have a hybrid solution, which again does include a SaaS HRMS. We did meet the forecast for last year, and that's the area where we're going to see the strongest growth. And here's one of the places where top performer organizations are different, in that already a third of these top performer organizations have moved to SaaS HRMS, and by next year, almost two-thirds of them will have moved to a SaaS HRMS. So that's clearly the direction for top performers, at least. So why move to SaaS? So the number one reason that respondents say they're moving to a SaaS HRMS is to improve their user experience. And not just to improve the user experience for HR, but really for employees and managers as well. And you can see the other reasons: better functionality, reduced costs. But I think it's interesting here that the perspectives on top reasons vary by stakeholder. So 75% of our respondents are from HR, so the ranking for their top reasons is the same as that for overall. But looking at the IT column, their number one reason is to reduce the need for internal infrastructure so that they can focus on other value-added activities. And then for them, it's a reduced total cost of ownership at number two. And then executives, they too are looking for an improved user experience. And that's their number one reason for moving to a new SaaS HRMS. But for them, they're also looking for a fast time to implement and achieve value. So I think the fact that these perspectives vary so much should really tell any of you that are selling, whether you're selling as a vendor or selling internally, that we need to have a little sensitivity for the reasons to move by the stakeholder that we're working with. The benefits for moving to SaaS, by far the most important value proposition, is that a SaaS HRMS takes significantly less headcount to support, a quarter less the staff on average. And these are combined staff headcounts from both HR, IT, and from IT that are either functional or providing application support or providing infrastructure support, or are the consultants brought in to support either of those. So what you're seeing here is the overall average view by deployment option, and you can see that SaaS takes considerably less people from that functional application or infrastructure support area. And even if what we've done here is we've normalized the staff counts by looking at the number of employees served, and SaaS takes less headcount. That value proposition holds regardless of size of organization. So here we've combined the HRIT and IT full-time equivalents and separated them by small, medium, and large organizations. And for the small organizations, the 2.3 IT, HRIT people are serving about twice as many employees as the HRIT and IT staff needed to support a licensed software solution. And then marching across the page, you see that in medium-sized organizations, those support staff are able to serve more employees. In medium-sized organizations, even in the large organizations, those that are supporting a SaaS solution are able to serve many more employees than at organizations that have a licensed on-premise, although we're also seeing that for now at least, those that have a hosted solution, the HRIT and IT staff are supporting a little bit more than those that have a SaaS solution. But the point is that that SaaS solution, the HRIT and IT staff are serving more employees. The other value proposition is that SaaS takes considerably less time to deploy, and so as a result, an organization can get to the benefits of the new solution faster, whether it's an improved user experience or more functionality. So at the top here, we show the length of time for new deployments. We see a SaaS deployment takes about less than half the time to deploy than with a licensed on-premise solution. And again, the value proposition holds true by size of organization. And of course, a larger organization takes a little bit longer to deploy a SaaS solution, 9.5 months on average, but considerably less time than it takes to deploy a new licensed on-premise HRMS. And with the medium-sized organizations, one of the things I think we at Cedar Crestone see is that those organizations that have between 2,500 and 10,000 employees, these are organizations that often grew really fast. They perhaps had not done great process improvement work, which really needs to be done before moving to a SaaS deployment to configure the solution to needs. We also oftentimes see those medium-sized organizations are ones that are the result of a merged organization. And so their SaaS solution might take a little bit longer than it does for a hosted solution. So let me turn to the vendor choices in use today and planned for the next 12 months. And we developed these dashboards for just the vendors that have at least 5% adoption today or will have in the next 12 months. So today, overall, PeopleSoft is the most adopted solution in place. They'll lose some adoption over the next 12 months. If you look at the white paper, we've broken this out by size of organization, and PeopleSoft is today the predominant choice, and it's pretty much going to hold its own in the larger organizations. ADP, second most in use. When we look at ADP adoption by size of organization, we see that they have clearly have a lead in small-sized organizations, but as the organizations grow, they oftentimes choose to move to a different solution provider. And then at the bottom of the list, you see Workday really coming on strong over the next year with really impressive growth. And here's a place where top performers are different. More of those have chosen Workday today than the overall average to date. I want to introduce another view of vendor adoption by juxtaposing it with employee usage. So we've talked about vendor adoption, and we show that on the vertical axis. But how about the strength of user adoption within the organization that we show here on the on the horizontal axis? So that, I think, shows the effectiveness of the solution. Higher employee usage means an organization is getting more value from the solution. So we're still showing PeopleSoft as the leading solution in use today, but the horizontal axis shows the SaaS solutions lead with Workday up there, showing high employee usage adoption today. And then one more view I want to look at, show you the user experience score that is given by HRMS solution. So it's another place that Workday shines. So here what we did is we asked respondents to identify the user experience on a scale of poor, so not very user-friendly. It really limits use, to excellent, where the solution is intuitive and really is promoting use. So the average user experience score, 2.07. You know, I kind of think that's not particularly great. It's just acceptable. You know, I think of a 1 as being an F and a 3 as being an A, so a 2 score is just a C. But here again, the SaaS providers consistently score higher on user experience scores, and Workday gets a whopping big 2.8. So those respondents that have a Workday solution are very much saying that it's got an excellent, intuitive, user-centered design that really promotes use, and not just use by HR, but of the entire workforce. This is a bad chart, so I want you to just kind of blur your eyes. What we're showing here is the application adoption for the categories of apps that we track by industry, and then by size. And so anywhere where you see lots of green, that's an industry or a size of organization that is at least 5% above average adoption for the applications. And those columns that have lots of yellow, they're behind. So smaller organizations haven't yet adopted as much of the technology as the larger organizations. And then by industry, it's high tech, it's financial services, it's healthcare in some areas, it's retail in some areas that are above average adopters. And I thought it would be interesting to compare the Workday respondents. This is a sample of one of our benchmark charts where we show both overall adoption and then the adoption by the Workday respondents and then also by top performers. And what was so intriguing is that the Workday respondents are actually ahead of the top performers here. So they're above 5% greater adoption of the applications tracked in each category than the overall survey respondents. So in the administrative application area, they lead in adoption. Obviously, I mean, this is an area where most everybody's kind of got it. There's a 95% overall adoption of the core system of record, of payroll, and of benefits administration. With workforce optimization, second to last there, Workday respondents are leading there, even ahead of the top performers in their adoption of the 3 applications we track, which are workforce analytics, workforce planning, and predictive analytics. And when you look at the Workday solutions, they've got really good embedded analytics, and the Workday respondents are very much strong adopters of that. So moving ahead to some of the other categories of applications that we track, the value proposition for service delivery technologies, we've always based that on how many employees are served, by HR administration. And what we're seeing here is that organizations with technologies serve about 15% more employees than those without these technologies with their HR administrative staff. And then regardless of size, the solution that enables organizations to serve the most employees is when the organization moves to a shared services model that also has an HR help desk call center technology solution along with employee and manager self-service. So that's the model that delivers the highest level of efficiency for the enterprise at any size. And by the way, in our white paper, we also show these ratios by various industries. And I think this is an area that you really kind of have to benchmark yourself to those of your size and of your industry. With integrated talent management, the definition we have for integrated talent management is that the respondent organization has 2 or more of the 7 talent management applications provided by the same vendor. And we see strong growth from last year with the adoption of that integrated talent management solution. And we also see a strong link to value. Now, since one of the primary reasons for adopting talent management solutions is, or perhaps should be, to impact business outcomes, we again look at financial metrics. And in this case, we looked at revenue per employee and net income per employee. And you see here that those that have that integrated talent management solution have outperformed those that don't on both revenue per employee and net income per employee. And then when we look at the type of integrated talent management solution, one of the things we see is those that have both an integrated talent management solution that's also built on the same platform as the HRMS, and we see about a little over half of the respondents have that it's these organizations that really have the higher business outcomes in terms of revenue per employee and net income per employee. And this is another area where the top performers more frequently have chosen that integrated talent management integrated on the same platform as the HRMS much more frequently. And to me, this data, I think, just really builds the case for having a unified HRMS and talent management solution. This is something that we've seen from our data for 3 of the last 4 years, that those that have it have the higher business outcomes. So it's something that's kind of got the test of time. In terms of BI analytics and its value, we actually track quite a bit about business intelligence and analytics, but I decided to just boil it down to this one slide. And the message here is that organizations that have matured their business intelligence and analytics capability to being able to bring together multiple sources of data together so that they can present it on dashboards and reports, whether that's provided by the analyst staff or ideally if actually you can put that capability into the hands of managers, those are the organizations that really outperform. And here, as elsewhere, the top performer organizations much more frequently have that more sophisticated BI. And I want to comment again on the vendor outlook for this area briefly, but I don't have a chart. There is one in the white paper. What we see is that the predominant approach for now is that organizations are using embedded analytics from the HR or from the talent management solution. So if you're looking for a new solution, make sure that it has good embedded analytics. Or Duke, I'm getting a lot of feedback on my phone right now. Am I coming through clear? Could somebody tell me?
Clear as a bell.
Okay, thanks, Duke. Sorry. Okay, social tools. So we've tracked the use and plans of the major publicly available social media like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, also wikis for several years now. And what we do is we ask whether respondent organizations are using these tools strategically as opposed to they're just allowing these tools to be used by individuals. And on average, we're seeing that strategic use, and by strategic use, we mean that they're using these tools for recruiting, for branding, for service delivery. So we're seeing an increase in that over the last year by over 20%. But I think that perhaps what's more important in terms of social functionality is when social functionality is applied to transform business processes. And I snagged this slide from IBM when they acquired Connexa earlier this year, and they had this slide in their analyst briefing that says that the real economic value is created when social technology and analytics are applied to transform business processes. And IBM said that its leading clients were generating meaningful return on investment by creating social networks of expertise. And I agree that that kind of social functionality that really impacts the organization starts first by having a corporate social network with services inside the firewall. And those services often frequently include the ability to find expertise of colleagues. And you can see that about a quarter of our respondents report that they have such a corporate social network in use. And then we also looked at the processes and their support with social enablement. And here I worked with various vendors and some process subject matter experts, and we developed a description of social enabled processes. And then we asked respondents to report the percent of the workforce, or in the case of recruiting, the percent of either recruiting staff or hiring managers, what percent are using these socially enabled processes today. And you can see that about half of recruiting staff use social-enabled recruiting, and they may be using the tools for passive and active recruiting. They might be using it for communicating with candidates. They might even be using social network analysis to identify prospects for their potential as a new hire. And in our white paper, we define the various ways that these processes are being socially enabled. But overall, just 6% of the workforce is using socially enabled HR processes today, and you can see we'll have strong growth. The top two processes with social enablement are recruiting and then the learning area. But, really, socially enabled HR processes are pretty much in their infancy, according to respondents. But, while there may not be much adoption yet, there's a lot of opportunity ahead. And I think, as IBM suggested, the early adopters are showing some benefit, and we see that with an emerging link of higher revenue per employee with those that have some socially enabled processes. And one of the other things is we see that those that have social enabled processes consistently rate the user experience with their HRMS or their integrated talent management much higher. So not only are we starting to see this consistent link to higher financial performance, but I think that rating of higher user experience augurs really well for the future in terms of increased employee usage, which in turn contributes to increased value from the solution. In the same way, we looked at mobile. We looked at processes and whether they were whether they were enabled on mobile devices. And here again, it's the recruiting, but the payroll processes that have the higher percentage of the workforce using today. And then with recruiting staff, again, having the highest adoption of all, followed by hiring managers. So organizations are starting to have some mobile enablement, but it's an area too that still is emerging. But I think this is an area that is very critical to improving the user experience to satisfy the workforce by providing services on the devices of choice. And it's an area that the Workday really is excelling on. So again, I just invite you to download our white paper. We describe the various ways that these processes are being mobily enabled. And if you're in the market for a new solution and mobile is important to you, as I think it should be because it satisfies the workforce more to give them solutions on their devices of choice, do make sure that you're looking at vendors that have mobile enablement. Okay, expenditures, and I always have to sigh when I get to this chart because it's such a complicated story about expenditures, and so if you want to know if you're spending the right amount, I really think this is an area where you should benchmark to others in your industry or to others that have the kind of solution that you're looking for your organization. But I think this year we finally are starting to see a story emerge. So let me walk you through what I'm seeing by looking at our data. So at number one, really most respondents today that are large employers with over 10,000 employees, they have a licensed on-premise solution. They are the ones that are paying less on a per employee basis. Today. Their costs are likely going to be going up next year because we're seeing a lot of those large organizations move to go global, to move all of their employees onto a single system of record. So their costs are going to be going up over the next year. And we see on the SaaS side that the large organizations that have a SaaS solution, they're starting their SaaS HRMS implementations. They're also expecting to expand functionality next year, so their costs are still going up, and they're also going to be doing more global work. But if you look down at number 3, this is where we're seeing that the small organizations are paying less for their SaaS HRMS than organizations that have a licensed on-premise solution. Really the licensed on-premise solution just doesn't scale well for the smaller organizations. And then if you look at number 4, those that have a SaaS HRMS, their costs are projected to go down next year. And I think that that's what we're going to see over time, that the SaaS per employee costs will go down going forward once organizations have the solution in place, they've done their global work, and they've expanded their functionality. So I hope I've kind of given you an idea of what I'm seeing from these. But again, I think it's probably best to benchmark your organization against others of your size, of your industry, or of the solution that you are thinking about going to. By the way, what I'm showing here is just the HRMS costs. We have all the other expenditures too that we track. But one more kind of point to make here. One of the areas that we track is the cost for a BI solution. And here we see that those that have an integrated HRMS and talent management on the same platform, their costs are about half of those that have a disparate set of talent management solutions. So another reason to move to that integrated HRMS and talent management solution. So I've got two more slides here. The first is I want to conclude with summing up the 7 practices of top performing organizations. And again, we looked at those organizations that are top performers in terms of their financial performance and then looked at their practices. So what we see is that top performers have much more frequently moved to standardized processes. They know what needs to be standardized by country, by division, and they much more frequently have really sophisticated change management practices. They also more frequently have deployed a SaaS HRMS, or they're planning that move. I think this is a very clear future direction. And they've also avoided customization. And in the case of top performers, many of them have no customization. Obviously, they've already moved to a SaaS HRMS. They've also more frequently adopted more sophisticated service delivery solutions, not just employee and manager self-service, but also they've more frequently moved to shared services. They have an HR call center technology to support in-service delivery. They've adopted an integrated talent management solution on their HRMS solution much more frequently. They've also moved to that more sophisticated business intelligence, and they've been able to push that out to their managers much more frequently. And what's interesting is they not only have more technology, but they pay less for it. They pay about 12% less than other organizations. And I think it's due to the fact that they have an integrated talent management solution on their HRMS and they have less customization. So I would just highly encourage you and your organizations to consider these practices if they're not already in place. What we're seeing is that the adoption of these practices lead to lower costs and higher value. So my last slide here is kind of a busy one. If you know me, you know that I'm pretty much a broken record about the importance of change management. I think it's one of the real success factors in any deployment of technology. And one of the things that was kind of interesting is most of our survey is multiple choice questions, but we ask 6 open-ended questions, and one of them was about the kind of change management that was happening in organizations. And we had almost 1,250 respondents, and I would say about a third of the respondents actually provided detail about what they're doing with their change management processes. And the level of sophistication over the past 15 years of doing this survey, I think, has just risen dramatically. So one of the things we were seeing is that there are dedicated teams doing change management with new deployments. There was the use of Six Sigma, ISO, lean manufacturing approaches applied to new rollouts, especially when going global. There were lots of stakeholder engagement activities. There were things like usability studies and testing by stakeholder community, and of course lots and lots of comprehensive training and communication programs. This slide is actually one that we use in our Workday projects, and it's reflecting what we're learning on our Workday projects, that most of the current trends associated with moving to SaaS today are really more kind of like polarities to manage rather than just being problems to solve. And what we're seeing is the need to move from one way of thinking to another, from one pole to another, you know, for instance, from the need to move from on-premise to off-site, or to move from deviation with processes to standardization, or to move from customization to configuration, or centralization to decentralization, that the poles are actually kind of interdependent, and you can't always just choose one as a total solution and neglect the other side. And so what we're seeing is that the approach that works is to shift from either or thinking to a kind of both and thinking. And I probably haven't really done justice to this, and I understand that we're actually going to be doing a webinar on the topic of change management. So I really hope that you'll continue to check back and look at the webinars that we're going to be having in the future. Anyway, so let me conclude here by putting this slide up and see if we've got some questions. This is the web picture of our web page where you can register to receive any of our latest survey white papers. You can also download the presentation. You can also sign up for our RSS feed so that you get any notifications on any of our upcoming white papers. So let me turn this back over to Mary now, and thanks.
Thanks, Lexi, and you did an excellent job on the polarity slides. I wanted to let you know.
I actually have a master's degree in OD, and I kind of understand what we're doing there. I'm dangerous.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So at this point, we would like to open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions for Lexi, we'd be happy to take those questions at this time.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Once again, that is *1 for any questions. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. Currently, there are no questions in queue at this time.
I hope I didn't put everybody to sleep. I know one of the questions we typically get is whether the slides will be available. They absolutely will be available.
All right. Well, Lexi, you did a wonderful job, I guess. You know, no one has any questions. You answered everybody's questions. Well, for those who might be shy on asking questions, feel free to send any questions you might have to the contact@cedarcreststone.com. We're happy to respond to the questions. And Lexi, I believe you post the questions and the answers on the website itself, do you not?
Yeah, actually, we'll not only post the presentation along with all the white papers and stuff, but we typically do any kind of responses to questions. And so send questions to contact@Cedar Creststone. We'll handle those within Cedar Creststone, and if it needs to come to me, they'll come to me.
Sounds good. Well, we'll let everybody get 6 minutes back out of their day. Since we're actually
I thought I was going to do this in a half an hour.
There you go. I want to thank everybody for attending. Again, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And have a great day, and also have a great holiday week next week. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Same to you. Thanks. Bye.